We're going to look at Deuteronomy 28, and the theme of today's talk is about the link between obedience and blessing. Obedience and blessing. So are you with me? Verse 1 of Deuteronomy 28. If you fully obey the Lord your God and carefully follow all his commands that I give you today, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations on earth. All these blessings will come upon you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God. You'll be blessed in the city and blessed in the country. The fruit of your womb will be blessed, and the crops of your land, and the young of your livestock, the calves of your herds, and the lambs of your flocks. Your basket and your kneading trough will be blessed. You will be blessed when you come in, and blessed when you go out. The Lord will grant the enemies who rise up against you will be defeated before you. They will come at you from one direction, but flee from you in 7. The Lord will send a blessing on your barns and on everything you put your hand to. The Lord your God will bless you in the land he is giving you. The Lord will establish you as his holy people, as he promised you on oath, if you keep the commands of the Lord your God and walk in his ways. Then all the peoples of the earth will see that you are called by the name of the Lord, and they will fear you. The Lord will grant you abundant prosperity in the fruit of your womb, the young of your livestock, and the crops of your ground in the land he swore to your forefathers to give you. The Lord will open the heavens, the storehouse of his bounty, to send rain on your land in season and to bless all the work of your hands. You will lend to many nations, but borrow from none. The Lord will make you the head, not the tail. If you pay attention to the commands of the Lord your God that I give you this day and carefully follow them, you will always be at the top, never at the bottom. Do not turn aside from any of the commands I give you today, to the right or to the left, following other gods and serving them. However, if you do not obey the Lord your God and do not carefully follow all his commands and decrees I am giving you today, all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I wonder what you're tempted by, which distracts you the most in your life at the moment. You know, you have a focus, you're a disciple of Jesus, you're on your way, and I'm wondering what it is that you are distracted by. What inner world or external force or around you is pulling you in a contrary direction to the one that you have set your heart upon. You are a follower of Jesus, but you're being pulled in a different... I wonder what the distractions are at the moment. You will know that I am... Some of you will know better than others because you're on Facebook. But you will know that God has been speaking to me about my discipline of time recently. I have set my heart on taking a Sabbath and doing Sabbath properly and living a particular way. In order to deal with the restlessness of my life, God is giving me the gift of time. He's given it to all of us, but he's making me aware of it. And he's saying, here is the gift of time. I want you to honor this, make it holy, separate this from other bits of your time, and I want you to rest. So a couple of weeks ago, I preached on that, which was fantastic because that reinforced it to me. I then thought I'd better follow through on it, and I went and had a fantastic Sabbath, a couple of last weekends. And it was a really fantastic time, and I was feeling very confident about myself and thinking, this is great, I've learned a new trick, this is great, this is my life, this is my future, brilliant. And then I was due to go on a retreat day, hear the word retreat day, which is another kind of quiet day, with the bishop's staff and the rural dean. Sounds posh, but basically we went for time to be with God. That was the purpose. So the bishop has also gifted us time and said, I want you to come away in order to be still, in order to hear from God. Another gift from God. And so I set off on my way to having come from a place of peace and rest, I set off on my way to Glastonbury Abbey and the retreat house at Glastonbury Abbey. And on the way there, someone started flashing me on the way towards. I thought, maybe I was going in my camper van, so I thought maybe the lights are on or something. So I was fiddling around, looking for where the switches are, and I was wondering. And then suddenly I looked up, and there was the police van in front of me with its camera out the back. I looked down at the speed, and it said 37 miles an hour, according to my speedometer. And I knew that I was done. And I arrived at this. Of course, immediately I slowed down, and I paid attention to every feeling rubbish, feeling like, blast, And then I got there, and there's an irony to all of this, isn't there? Do you see the sweet irony of this? I just been given this command, and then I'm on a retreat day. I'm driving to a retreat day, and my restlessness, and I wasn't late or anything. I had plenty of time, and I was speeding to get there. We set ourselves a particular goal, and then we realize that actually sticking to the thing that we have been called to do, even when it is a good thing and we are agreed about it, we get distracted by something else. And so they sent me a little letter congratulating me on my speed. That they were impressed that my Volkswagen van had got to such a high speed of 36 miles an hour, and they've invited me to go on a special course which only the best drivers go to. And I'm looking forward to that. There was this man who this is the Metropolitan line, so the line that I was brought up in London, yeah, and the tube trains. And when you live in London and you go on the tube, when you get off the station, or get down to the station, you come down the steps, and you know after a while where you're going to. So if you get off at Baker Street, I go northward, and we're going to Baker Street. And you'd know that the stairs at the other end are 3 carriages up from the front. So if you're getting off, you save a bit of time, you use the time as you're waiting for the train to walk to the point where you know the 3rd carriage will arrive and the doors will always open in exactly the same place. So you do that, and day after day, this is what my dad did for 40 years, just kind of and he knew exactly which carriage to get on. So there's this guy who gets on a tube train just like I used to, and he got onto the train, and of course the same people are in there most mornings, and you're standing there or sitting there, and this guy was standing there hanging onto the thing, and people he didn't recognise, but he kind of found himself kind of bumped into a lady next to him, and sorry, sorry about that. Anyway, so they're kind of embarrassed and awkward. So don't worry. And anyway, they got chatting for a bit of time on the journey in. That was good. Got off the train. He went, and then a couple of days later, he was on he sat down this time, and the lady just happened to be opposite him, sitting down as well. And she said, "Oh, hi, yeah. Sorry about the other day. When I bumped into you. Sorry about that." She said, "Oh, don't worry." And they continued their conversation, and it got a bit deeper. I mean, this went on. They kept bumping into each other in the carriage over a period of time. And then he began to notice in himself that as he was walking towards the station, he was kind of anticipating meeting this woman. Now, he's married with kids. And he noticed in his heart there was a kind of quickening of his kind of spirit in anticipation that this woman might be there on the train. And lo and behold, quite often she was. And when he was, he smiled, and they would often sit with each other and started chatting, and it became quite a thing for him. And then he thought, this isn't good. This isn't good. I don't really know what to do. But he decided that he would talk to his best friend about it, who happened to be his wife. So he came home one day and he said, "Darling, can I have a chat with you?" And sat down in the garden and sat opposite her and told her the story exactly, well, kind of like what I've just told you. And his wife sat opposite, and she looked generously towards him, and he said, "I don't know what to do. I haven't a clue what to do." And she said, "I know exactly what to do." And he said, "What should I do?" And she said, "Change trains." So the next morning, he got up got the earlier train in, and he didn't see her. And the next morning again, he didn't see her. He never saw her again. It's really good advice. Change trains. He got distracted, and he had to come back into line with himself. What we're looking at today is the link between obedience and blessing. We've been doing this journey with God. God has led us into thinking a bit about blessing, what it is to live the blessed life. And here we're looking at the idea, where does obedience fit into blessing? So I'm full of good intentions, and you know that my thing at the moment is about how I use my time, and about God wanting not just for me to obey a certain set of rules, but for me to become a person without the restless drive within. He wants to train me to become someone who doesn't just have to not be late because that would be wrong, but someone for whom time is functioning in rhythm with himself. He wants me to live in a place of blessing about time. So I'm setting myself some intentions, but of course I fail on this account, as I guess all of us do. If there would be an area in our lives, I guess all of us have got an area of our lives, of one area or another, where we're out of sync with God in some way or another. I won't get you to put your hands up, because I'm just going to assume that all of us in the room has some area or other, like me, where you know that you're out of sync with yourself, with the way you're made, and with your Creator in relationship terms. So some of us have stuff in our minds. The way we think and the places our minds go to are not the kind of things that we'd really want to share with me being your pastor or vicar. You have a way of thinking that you would be a bit more ashamed about, and you wouldn't want to talk about it openly. You have a way of thinking about stuff. Thoughts come into your mind. So you have an issue with your thinking. Some of us have issues with our money. And currently at the moment, we may be carrying anxiety about money, or we're feeling unable to be generous and relaxed, like Mark was encouraging us to be. Or was it Joel? I can't remember. Was it you, Mark? Or Joel? It was Joel. Mark looked to me as if to say, it wasn't me. Well, we've got a kind of thing about money at the moment, and we're holding on to it, or it's an issue for us. Or we're in debt and we don't know how to get out of debt, and we're out of sync with our money. Others of us, there's something about our family relationships, and we know that we are out of sync. Last week's talk that Joel did about siblings was really powerful for many of us, and we found ourselves in a staff team talking about how we did family relationships. And all of us were out of sync in one of our family relationships or other, or more. There was something where we just knew we were out of sync. And some of us made some decisions about that, even on a Thursday morning. Some of you, like me, it's about time, how we're doing our time. We're either feeling like we're wasting time, or we're rushing around. And then others of us, it may be an issue about how we use our bodies, our sexuality. We have an inner world of sexuality and an outer world of sexuality, and maybe one or other of those is out of sync with the way that we are made and the way that God wants us to be. So I'm assuming that everybody is somehow, somewhere on this thing. If none of those are your thing and it's somewhere else, that's fine. I'll accept that as part of the all of us this morning. But I'm assuming that with me, you're happy to put your hand up and go, I am one of the ones who's somewhere slightly out of sync with God. Which gets us to Deuteronomy 28. And the story of Deuteronomy is that this is Moses' the finishing of the covenant. Like you have when you buy a house or you buy a car, you get the paperwork that goes with it. And you do all the kind of negotiations, and then you get given the paperwork right at the end that you sign at the bottom. So this is like the kind of paperwork at the end. The negotiations have all gone on, and they're just about to land in the promised land. And this is the covenant, the final bit of the covenant. And Moses gets to read out all the small print, all in one big go, and he delivers it. But rather than me tell you about that, what I want to do is show you a little video of what this is. So you've got 5 minutes just to explain the setting of Deuteronomy.
The book of Deuteronomy, the epic conclusion to the Torah, and spoiler alert, Moses is going to die. Now, in order to understand this book, we need to remember the story so far.
So Israel has escaped from slavery in Egypt. Then they spend 1 year at Mount Sinai.
This is where they made the covenant with God to obey all of these laws.
Then they wander around the desert for 40 years before they make it to the Jordan River, which is right across from the land God promised them. They're ready to go in. This is where the book of Deuteronomy begins.
And what this book is really is a speech. Moses gives these final words. It's like a pep talk to the new generation of Israel that's about to go into the land. And the speech, it's broken up into 3 large sections.
So Moses begins the first part of the speech with a somber tone because he's highlighting Israel's rebellion and resistance, which has been going on for the last 40 years.
And that sets up the rest of this opening section, which is Moses' challenge to this new generation to be different from their parents and to respond to God's grace with love and obedience. So he reminds them of the 10 Commandments, like the basics of the covenant, and then he gives them this very famous line.
Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength.
Now, in Jewish tradition, this is called the Shema, because the first Hebrew word in this line is Shema Yisrael. And this became a very important prayer in Judaism, said twice a day. And it emphasizes the Israelites' exclusive commitment to their God, the one true God who loved them and who rescued them from slavery.
Right, because they're about to go into a land where people are worshiping many other gods.
And Moses thinks that loyalty to the Lord their God is the only way to life. Now, notice these key words in the Shema, listen and love. You're going to find these words all over this opening section of the speech. The word listen in Hebrew means more than just let sound waves come into your ears. It includes the idea of responding to what you hear. So for Israel, this means responding to God's grace by obeying the laws of the covenant.
And then listen is always followed by love.
Yeah, so love is the true motivation for obeying the laws. Israel won't obey without love, and they don't truly love if they don't obey. So there's this tight connection between loving and listening that runs through the entire book. And so Moses tells them that if they do listen and love, they will fulfill their original calling as the family of Abraham, to show all of the nations the wisdom and justice of God, and so become a blessing to them.
The second big section in Deuteronomy is a large block of laws and commands.
And this is where the book gets its name. Deuteronomy means a second law. And it's because many of these laws we've heard before. In fact, in the first line of the book, we're told that Moses is here explaining or clarifying the laws. So he's repeating and expanding on the laws, making them relevant to this new generation.
There's laws about how Israel's to worship God, laws about their leadership structure, laws about social justice, and then some more laws about their worship.
Now, after all of the laws, Moses warns Israel of the consequences of their obedience or disobedience, or in his words, the blessing or the curse. If they listen and love, they will experience blessing and abundance in the land, and if they don't, there's going to be famine and plagues, and they'll be forced off their land into exile.
And that brings us to the final section of his speech.
Yeah, here Moses says, I set before you today life or death, blessing or curse. So choose life. But then things get really interesting because after 40 years with these people, Moses knows they're not going to obey. And so he predicts their failure and even their future exile from the promised land. And he focuses on what he thinks is the true source of the problem, that they have hard and selfish hearts. It's as if Israel is incapable of truly loving God in a way that brings about obedience.
But this problem isn't unique to Israel.
Yeah, in fact, Moses, when he's using this language about blessing and curse, he's tying Israel's story all the way back to all humanity's story from Genesis 1 through 3.
So Adam and Eve, they were blessed by God just like Israel and given a choice to trust and obey God like Israel.
And then they rebelled and brought a curse on the land like Moses knows Israel is going to do. And so these stories, they're about Israel's hard heart, but they're actually a window into the universal human condition.
But Moses doesn't give up hope entirely.
That's right. He says that somehow, on the other side of Israel's exile, God promises to transform their heart so that one day they truly can listen and love.
In the final chapters, Joshua is appointed as the new leader of Israel.
And then Moses takes the entire law code,
The one he just predicted Israel would break.
that's right, and he puts it into the Ark of the Covenant. And then Moses hikes up to the top of a mountain so he can see the promised land from afar, and then he dies. And that's how the Torah ends.
Which is a strange place to end the story. I mean, it's right there at the climax. Will they obey the laws and live faithfully in the land or not?
Well, the story does continue right into Joshua, the next book of the Bible, but this is the end of the Torah, and it's been ended here for a reason. The Torah is written for people who are either outside of the land or who are still waiting for the fulfillment of God's promise to bless the whole world. And so now, as each generation reads the Torah, they find themselves called to hope in what Moses hoped for, a new, transformed heart that one day can truly listen and love.
Shema Israel. Did anyone pick up what Shema meant? Listen. Excellent. Fantastic. Well done. Well done. Oh, yeah, that's good. Shema, O Israel. Hear, O Israel. And this is the beginning. This is like the key verse in the whole of Deuteronomy. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your strength, all your soul. And you shall follow the commands. You shall give them to your children. You shall encourage them. In fact, let's read it. Let's read it together. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is the only Lord. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. These commands that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. So here's a note to just parents in the room. And this is a key verse for us as parents. You know, we're given these children, and we're given the task of impressing this way of living upon our children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road. When you're in the car, you know, when you're driving along. Talk about the commands of God. When you lie down and when you get up, tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on your door frames of your houses and upon your gates. Decorate your life and your world with these commands because they're that beautiful and that brilliant, and they will lead you to blessing. The blessing that we know from Abraham was that we were called to be the people of God, or that Israel was called to be the people of God under one God, in contrast to the many-godded neighbors where everybody else had lots of different gods. And they were to be a unified people who were going to bless the world around them. And the two key words that the film picked out for us were listen and love. Listen to me and love. And we're going to little bit about the word listen. Obey comes from the Latin obedire, which is two words put together. Ob, which means towards, and audire, which is about hearing. So I don't know, this is news to me, but I have learnt as a result of this thing that obedience is about hearing well. Really interesting, isn't it? That if you obey, you've heard well. With Milo, with my dog, when I used to shout, Milo! I knew whether he was obedient or not when he responded. And I would think that he hadn't heard me when he didn't respond. And so I would get louder or get closer or do something to get his attention. It's the same with children. With children, when my kid, I went on a parenting course when Angus was 2.5, because he wasn't getting into the pushchair. Or rather, he wanted to get out of the pushchair when I wanted to get him into the pushchair. And I remember having my knee on the middle of his body and my hands on his shoulders, kind of like trying to get it. Is this not going down very well? Are you impressed by my parenting? I was basically struggling to get him into the pushchair. And of course, he didn't want to be in the pushchair. And he just had a newborn sister that he was fighting against in all sorts of different ways. And I found just disciplining him really difficult. And I was getting louder and louder and louder, a bit like a dog. And I was taught in this beautiful course to get his attention. And so the person said, well, how do you communicate to your kids? And well, first of all, I just expect them to be good. I just expect them to be good. And then I tell them off when they're not good. And then I ask them questions. why can't you just be good? To which the answer is not very helpful. The answer. So I would be talking to Angus, why can't you just be good? I don't know, Dad, I just want bad. I don't know. He didn't really talk like that, age 2.5, but he... I was frustrated, and then the course taught me that I had to get down to his level. I had to look him in the eye. Parents around the room, I had to get his attention, and then bring my opinion or my direction to him in a positive way. And I had to look him in the eye. And if he wasn't looking in my eye, I might touch him or put my hand on him in order to get his attention, which meant me moving from the other room where I was just shouting at him. I had to move towards him, put my hand on his shoulder and say, Angus, I want you to get into the pushchair, or whatever it was. It's now time to go upstairs, or whatever the issue was. And I remember the first day we tried this, because it was straight after the course. We'd done the course, and I knew that after the course we would have to go back in the car and get Angus into the car, and which was one of the, we had one of those car seats that is impossible to buckle up if a child is wriggling, And so I said to Angus, and I went straight down, got down to he was in the push, got down, knelt down, looked him in the eye, put my hand on his shoulder and said, Angus, I want you to get into the car seat. He got out of the pushchair, climbed up into the seat, got into the car seat. I reached over, pulled the thing down, buckled it up. I was ready to teach a course on parenting at that moment. I had completely nailed this thing. And what had changed? I had just focused my attention on him sufficiently so that he could hear what it was I actually wanted him to do. Rather than not be bad, I gave him clarity of direction. Now, we learnt quite quickly that he also learnt that we had changed. I think it was later the afternoon or maybe the next day that he said to Tori, who's also using these same things on, Mummy, you've changed. Can we go back to the old version where you used to shout at us and I used to get away with stuff? How come you're just chasing me around the place, talking to me so seriously all the time? You go assertively and confidently. Hate this. Why do I share that? I share that because there is something about us learning to listen. And I am like Angus to God. I find it difficult to hear his command because I am distracted by my own desire with the stuff that I want to do. And I fear that his good command will be a negative thing to me and will change the way I live. And I see that often as a negative. Anyone else in the room feel that? To obey is to hear rightly. But in Jewish language, these two words go together. So obeying, hearing, and blessing go together. So in Exodus 19, verse 5, if you obey my voice, you shall be my possession. 27, verse 4, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. Do you see the link between speech and hearing and action? We will be obedient. Deuteronomy 6, hear, O Israel, the Lord is one. Deuteronomy 11:13, if you listen obediently to my commands. Psalm 81, verse 11, my people did not listen to my voice. Israel did not obey me. Or Jeremiah 7:23, obey my voice, and I will be my God. I will be your God, and you shall be my people, and walk only in the way that I command you, so that it may be well with you. So my simple message today, without too much complication, is what are you hearing from God today? And will you pay attention to the voice of the God? He doesn't always shout. He doesn't always yell. He may be whispering to you. It may even be your conscience. I don't know if you're one of those who services your car on a really regular basis, like you always do it and you just know that it's in your diary, you're just going to always do it, or whether you're one of those, perhaps a bit more like me, that you do it when you kind of get round to doing it, and it's part of kind of like, oh, you forget, because it costs money, and kind of slightly delay the thing and try and get away with it. Have you ever tried to buy a car from someone like me who hasn't serviced their car regularly and precisely? And you're much less, you don't want to buy that car. You want to buy the car from someone like Nathan, who will service his car completely on the dot and regularly. Is that right, Nathan? I'm looking at you as if, yeah. Because a car that is regularly serviced is going to be better than one that is only kind of serviced when it's going wrong. And why do we regularly service a car? We regularly keep a car serviced so that it is in sync. So the question to us today is, are we in sync? Are we regularly servicing our lives according to the rules and guidance of God? Or are we trying to find a new way of living? Do you remember Jesus? I'm going to finish with this. Jesus gives a new version of Deuteronomy 28 in Matthew 5, 6, 7, and 8. And this is where Jesus is like kind of giving his re-covenanting with the people again. And he does exactly the same that Moses does. He gives them a whole load of blessings. Blessed are you, blessed are you, blessed are you, blessed are you. And then he gives a whole load of stories of things that are going wrong in the people's hearts. And he talks about their minds. He talks about their sexuality. He talks about their money. He talks about the way that they live. And then he says, if you obey my commands, things will go well with you. You'll be blessed. But if you don't, you'll be, well, this is what he says. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house upon the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation upon the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who builds his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose up, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Jesus ends his great story, his great sermon, with disaster, with houses that fall flat, with fig trees where the plants aren't producing fruit and therefore they're thrown away, the branches are cut off, or vineyards that are thrown away and burnt. He ends on the cursing side of things, just as Moses does. Now, we all want blessing in our lives. We're designed for it, and he wants to use us as a channel for his blessing. So the question I have in my mind is, which of these is God speaking to you at the moment? And are we hearing, 1 minute, Zig, are we hearing what God is saying to us? Are we paying attention for the voice of our God who loves us? I was talking to, I've forgotten your first name, Lucretia, who became a Christian 2 weeks ago. And she came today, but she lives around the corner. Excuse me for doing this, but it's great to have you. And a friend of mine in town got to pray with you and just discovered the joy of you discovering Jesus for the first time 2 weeks ago. And she told me all about it and said, you must text Lucretia. And so I've texted Lucretia, and she's replied back immediately with lots of enthusiasm. And I said, well, if you ever want to come to church here, ask 10:30. So, hey, you are welcome. But as she came in today, we were chatting about where she lives. And she said, well, I currently live in Freeview Road. But I'm actually moving at the moment. I'm going to London. Or at least that's what I was before I met Jesus. But now I'm just wondering, because I've met Jesus, I'm just wondering whether I ought to. And that really speaks to me. Because here's a new follower of Jesus who has decided to bring all of her life into the kingdom, including her decision about where to live. She's trying to listen out for God's blessing on her life, and so that includes where to live. Includes her money, includes her time, includes how she uses her body, includes how she's thinking, includes every bit of her. She's brought the whole bit of her into the kingdom. It's a beautiful story. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because you're now inside the kingdom of God. May God bless you as you wonder, because So as you wonder what God wants to do in your life, may you know where to live and how to live in every area of your life. And may we know the same thing. All of those choices that we make every single day, may we bring them into the kingdom of God and do things his way. There's a guy called Tozer who said this: the degree of blessing enjoyed by any man will correspond exactly with the completeness of God's victory over him. Shall we stand together? Mark, if you'd like to come to the front and just lead us in a song in a moment. We've got a couple of minutes before the children return, and let's use this time well. I want to speak first of all to anyone who was feeling overwhelmed before they came into the building this morning. And I'd like to invite you to hand over your senses, your sense of overwhelmingness, that fear, the anxiety, and to bring that into the kingdom of God and allow God to minister to you right now. So if that's you, just allow God to minister to you. Because I think this is a word for all of us, I'm assuming that we all want ministry today from the Holy Spirit. So if I invited you, one by one, that would be silly, because it just seems to me like there will be all of us are in this group together. None of us have got our lives completely in sync. So I'm assuming that all of us today will want some area of our lives to get back into sync. So what I want you to do is, just as we stand, that you just apply your mind to one area of your life which you know is out of sync with the way God wants it to be. Spirit, send your clarity to us right now so that we might know what it is that you want us to change in our lives. Minister to us, I pray. The degree of blessing enjoyed by any man will correspond exactly with the completeness of God's victory over them. In a moment, we're going to be walking out of this building and getting on with our lives. And the question that I feel prompted to ask you is whether you're going to be doing that, having paid attention to what the Spirit is saying to you right now, and then following on from that, and then you're going to apply that to your life and determine to live differently and to obey God. Whether you're going to change trains, whether you're going to think differently, whether you're going to repair that relationship, whether you're going to act differently, whether you're going to live in time differently, whether you're going to use your sexuality and your body appropriately. We're going to hand your money over to God as well.